Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Vader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the opportunity to catch up with my friend Billy Duren, President and CEO of Threaded Fasteners, Inc., based out of Mobile, Alabama. Now, when I went down to see these folks, it was a pretty small operation. And as you will hear through Billy's history, he'll talk a little bit about the evolution of the company and the growth. And I mean, these folks are up to about 19 locations and they are just not stopping yet. So anyway, it was just absolutely a pleasure catching up with him and really looking at some of the changing dynamics in that organization. Ultimately, the original owners decided to create an ESOP, and now it's an employee-owned company. And it's kind of fascinating how that really has unlocked the creativity and the people that work with them. So it's not working for a paycheck any longer. They're working to increase their equity. And there's just a lot of great things that have happened over the years. So anyway, I hope you all enjoy this episode and look forward to it. This episode was brought to you by my friends at Profit2. Clients have shared that the big thing that sets Profit2 apart is their approach. From the moment you meet the team at Profit2, you get a sense that they know their business and how to help you make improvements safely. What you don't get is an arrogance found in some competitive services. They know that you're an expert in your business, and they seek to help you be just a little bit better. We know resources are harder than ever to find, and with the barrage of price increases, adjusting to the changes is a massive and oftentimes manual challenge. If you want to discover hidden margin opportunities without being talked down to, learn more at www.profit2.com. That's profit with a number 2. And be sure to let them know you heard about them on the Distribution Talk podcast. Well, all right, Billy. Hey, welcome to Distribution Talk, my friend. It's really nice to see you again, and thanks for taking the time.
Looking forward to it, Jason. As always, being with you is always a pleasure, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, great. Hey, so tell me a little bit about your background. Why did you get involved with, fastener distribution, just distribution in general? What drew you to this crazy world?
Everybody grows up wanting to be in the faster distribution world. When you're in the first grade, it's one of those things right up there with astronaut and fireman's being in the faster distribution. But quite frankly, providentially, I just got a call from my grandfather. He had met these guys starting this faster company in Mobile, Alabama. I needed a job, and so I started working for our company in the summer of 1980. Here's a broom, push. That was my first instructions.
There you go.
And then they threw me over to sort out all these different fasteners. I didn't even know how to read a tape measure. I had to go home that night and get my grandfather to lay out a tape measure on a poster board and teach me the increment. So that was my introduction to the world of distribution, was assorted nuts and bolts, straighten them all out. I didn't know the difference between a 3/8 and a 7/8, but here I am 45 years later. And it's been an incredible journey.
Absolutely. That's really funny. I remember my first day as well. I was 13 years old and somebody had mixed, 2 sizes of tech screws in the same box. And I literally had to sift through a 50-pound box and sort 2 sizes of tech screws. I was like, oh my goodness. So yeah, I absolutely relate to that. So you stayed, okay, you got into, at least, you made it past the incremental measurement stage and then started going in. Tell me a little bit about the different roles that you took on and maybe what was the favorite out of that educational process?
Well, it was really cool because I was there for a summer, and then I came back and started going to college here in Mobile, and I just kind of worked intermittently between, but through the warehousing, learning how to drive a forklift, the whole 9 yards of the distribution stuff, and then our company was doing a little bit of manufacturing, so light manufacturing. Went back into the shop, learned how to become set up a rigid threader, and we moved on to Landis. I mean, the manufacturing piece of it to me was fascinating. And I really believe that kind of set us apart from the other little faster companies here. So we had huge distribution, but just a little bit of manufacturing that we had kind of bolted on, so to speak, as part of our offering. I really kind of fell in love with that. And it's actually that love for manufacturing has chased me all through my whole career. So from there, I moved into inventory control, then into sales, outside sales, sales management. And then, over the course of my career, really gotten involved with our business development teams and helping them grow a model here. But now, the blessing I have as the president and CEO of the company is we have so much more smart people in our
Sure.
sales and business development space than what I was. But it's been an incredible journey. And then part of our story is employee ownership.
Right.
So it's been a really cool story for me.
So when I visited you, several years ago, you weren't employee owned at that point, were you?
Yeah, I remember. I remember when you came, Jason, and this is the one thing I remember from you, among many things. Two things I heard you say: when inventory dies, it gets closer to heaven. You move it
Yes.
up into your pallet.
Yeah. Put it higher on the pallet rack.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
gets
Yeah. Yeah.
higher. It gets higher. It gets closer to heaven. And the second thing you said was every now and then you need to fire a customer. And I mean, it was like blasphemy for our
Yes.
team to hear every
Yes.
now and then you need to hire a customer. I remember those two things distinctly. I know there was a lot of other good stuff in there, but those are the things that were sticky moments for me when you came to visit.
I seem to remember the owner of the company at the time looking at me thinking, I got to throw this bum out of here, man. This guy, I can't believe I actually hired this guy to come in the room.
I think you almost fainted when you said
Yes,
that.
I think he did. Yeah, he was like, I saw a visible pain going through on his face. So, yeah. Oh, that's funny. So, I'm actually really fascinated with the manufacturing side. I think it's a really interesting adjunct to distribution, even though, as you said, the distribution piece was a big piece of it. But boy, that manufacturing, not only light manufacturing, but really kind of getting into it, that does set somebody apart, and frankly, helps your margins out just a little bit too.
No question about that. So we started out just small. Everybody started cutting, everybody was able to cut studs, but then we were
Sure.
cutting studs, make small double end studs. And then we bought our first Landis machine and we're roll threading bigger diameters, inch and a quarter, inch and a half. And,
Yeah.
just kind of set us apart for
Mhm.
somebody that needed it in a hurry. I mean, we were so nimble. I mean, if you called us in the morning, we could ship you 100 anchor bolts at lunch. I mean, there was two of us back there in the shop and we'd whack those things off and get them threaded. And,
Yep.
for long, we just kind of reputation for being that manufacturing company that could get you something in a hurry. And it really has followed us through our entire journey and continue to invest in manufacturing. Our distribution model has always been the biggest percentage of our business, but
Mhm.
manufacturing is catching up to it very quickly.
So, did that kind of hyper service that you all offered, to set yourself apart, did it ever bite you in the backside? Did that demand ever push you all kind of beyond capability and you got yourself in a tough position?
Well, Jason, you know that when you get more than one salesperson, you have offered yourself up for trouble because
Yeah,
then the salespeople are
sure.
competing for the capacity. So yeah, I would say that, learn, but again, here's the journey into leadership is learning how to have great clarity around communication on what we can do. And when you've got a limited amount of space, a limited amount of capacity, and you're competing for that, but yet not communicating for that, you know that there's going to be challenges there. So absolutely, it bit us in the butt when we tried to move away from that nimble doing 50 or 100, and then somebody places an order for 2,000, and we say, "Oh yeah, we can do that too." That just wasn't who we were. So
Right.
our identity as manufacturers changed over the years, but back
Mhm.
then it was we can cut studs really fast. We can cut and thread and bend small orders really fast. But
Sure.
beyond that, we were out over our skis. We
Yeah.
we kind of got into trouble. So that's a great point.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've seen different companies do this, and I had a client a while back, that to win the business, they offered 1 hour delivery, and yeah, it was 1 hour delivery, and they really broke into the market, all right, but had to buy 7 pickups and, more pickups than they had employees. And it was crazy. And it's been one that they've had to, wrestle with for decades later, decades. And so sometimes when we put those expectations out in the world, or those offerings, we got to play the tape to the end of the reel a little bit, and just see where that's going to go.
Yeah, and I think that you helped us when you came and helped us sort of to start identifying, who do we want to be?
Right.
Who do we want to be in this market? We often fall into the trap of we want to be everything to everybody, but that is just that's the road to nowhere. We want to
Mhm.
be really good at this niche market, and we just are not going to be. We're not going to be your cheapest guy. That's just not who we are.
Right.
It's not who we ever want to be. We want to be the company that never gets out hustled.
Yeah.
You may outprice us, but you're never going to out hustle us. We want
Yeah.
to create the best value for our clients, not
Mhm.
necessarily the cheapest price or even the best delivery. We want to create the best value. And that's kind of how we started identifying with our company. As a matter of fact, even our mission statement, create value in and for the people we serve. So even our mission statement is built around the idea that there's a value proposition out there. And
Mhm.
that's what we want to meet. We want to meet the client's value where they need us, not to be everything to everybody.
Yeah. No, I think that's a recipe for disaster. And, when I look at some companies that I've worked with over the years that, stock, 60,000 SKUs, and getting creeping up higher than that, I think that's when that mentality has crept in way too far. And I think that's, I hate to say it's a heavy sales dominated mentality that doesn't have any respect for, I want to do less things really, really well. And I think that's what gets people in trouble is they say, I no, I can do that. I can do that. At a certain point, your mediocrity catches up with you.
Absolutely. It's funny. Well, a cool dynamic at our company. One of our leading sales guys, we offered a challenge for him to move into our supply chain management instead of being on the sales side. And it
Oof.
was like he came over to the dark side,
Right.
because
Right.
there was always this competing sales want, 50 warehouses of everything. They
Yeah.
want all the
Yeah.
SKUs all the time. Purchasing over here, trying to develop this just in time lean machine over here in purchasing and replenishment. And it was so cool watching him transition. So now you hear him on the purchasing side, those sales guys go, "Who are you?"
What happened? What kind of brainwash did you run into?
That's right.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's hard. Honestly, those two personality types, they are very, very different. That sales and that inventory side. And so I think it's interesting to see people transition. I've seen, people do it many, many times over the years. And it's funny, they go from the yes man to the no man really, really quickly.
That's exactly right. And that's
Mm.
exactly what happened because this guy I'm talking about, he was the biggest complainer about purchasing, not delivering on his needs. And now he's that guy. And he has turned into being such a dynamic leader with our company,
Mhm.
though. But I believe that perspective has helped him in his leadership style because he's walked on both sides of the aisle, so to speak.
Yes.
And it's actually helped him become a better leader because he has a more broad perspective on both of those roles.
I agree. No, I absolutely agree. And I think it is interesting when somebody makes that transition, they tend to be they understand the other person's needs and that internal customer, that internal salesperson, or if it goes reverse, if they leave that, purchasing realm and inventory management realm and decide to go out and go in the field, they understand the other side well. And often they can bridge some of those communication gaps.
And we've seen the exact same thing with some of our branch leaders as well. So
Yeah,
our leaders at the branch level, a lot of them came out of the market side of business. So they came out of the sales side and they step into that management leadership role where they're now having to ride both sides of that fence. We want to
sure.
deliver to our customers. We got to be careful that we don't have too much inventory, but the right amount of inventory. So I love to watch the journey into leadership, especially those who come out of sales. It's one of my favorite things is to watch that development of leaders.
This episode of Distribution Talk is sponsored by InSQL Distribution Software. InSQL is a fully functional distribution-based software package, and these folks do it very well at a price point many smaller distributors can afford. Another thing I like about this company is they do it all in-house. They take on these applications and build them into the platform using state-of-the-art Microsoft technology. No third-party bolt-ons for them. This is important because when you need technical assistance, they are the single point of contact. If you're ready to step up to a fully loaded, scalable distribution package at an affordable price, look no further than InSQL Distribution Software at www.insql.com. That's INXSQL.com. Speaking of branches, I'm glad you brought that up. You all have kind of exploded, since this is going back several years that I came down to visit you all, but your organization has expanded dramatically. How did that come about? What was the impetus for, really adding locations?
Well, I mentioned a little bit earlier about the employee ownership. So in 2006, we bought out the majority shareholder, Frank Martin. And then in 2012, we completed the purchase of the company stock from Steve Schultes. So we became 100% employee owned in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a young, aggressive team that was really wanting to grow. And matter of fact, we were just talking about some of our mapping model in here this morning, where we had accounts, 60 miles to the west, 60 miles to the east. And so our organic opening started with an anchor account. We had a big anchor account 60 miles away. We opened up a branch location around that account, and it's grown. Same way to the west. And then from there, we had some acquisition opportunities come our way. So I believe since 2006, we've had 5X in revenue growth. We've grown from 3 locations to 19 locations. And our company has just been blessed beyond measure. Finding the right people, as you know, Jason, it's all about getting the right people. The locations provide themselves, but if you don't have the right people, the location really doesn't matter. So some of our branches has been opened around a person. Some have been opened around an anchor account. Some have been opened as acquisition. Some we've done both. We had a organic opening up in Chattanooga. And about a year after we were open, an acquisition opportunity popped up. So we just follow those opportunities as they've popped up. And what's really neat is we sort of connecting the dots between the locations now. So we have a location in Tampa and Chattanooga, kind of put our finger on the map. Okay, what's right between those two? And we opened up Tifton, Georgia as an organic location. So that's sort of our model. That we look for. We'll pull the U.S. map out every now and then and go,
Sure.
It'd be really cool to be here.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we've also looked at is our heat map from our logistics partners. So we look at these places across the country and we see this bunch of deliveries into this area. You say, wow, what's happening in this area?
Right.
And then we look there and there's an anchor account. And before long, we start a conversation around, hey, should this be a branch or should we look for a company maybe for sale in that area? But both of these things have worked for us. And it's been so neat how an opportunity will just open up. And some we followed down the trail to no end. We said, this really wasn't a good fit for us. Either it wasn't the right person, or in the acquisition model, there wasn't a team around the business that could take over, because we're looking for that business owner that's ready to step out, but somebody else has been in there helping them run the business. And we just come alongside them. And that's kind of been our working model so far. And it's been a blast.
I'll tell you, it's funny. I'm glad you mentioned that. I have met people over my career now, so many people over my career that, are kind of coming close to, hanging up the cleats, and they're looking for that exit strategy. And I remember distinctly, this is actually before I went into the consulting side. I was on the board of my trade association, and a gentleman, and I think he was into his mid 60s, and he said, hey, I'm thinking about, getting out and retiring, and I want to sell the business. Do you know anybody who might want to buy this? And, I had to really think about it, and I knew a little bit about his company, and, number one, he was the only, really the number one lead salesperson, doing all the purchasing, all this other stuff. And I'm like, what exactly is somebody going to buy? I was a little too young to be that flippant about it, but I just said, hey man, I don't think, it's going to be a good opportunity for somebody. And so I really appreciate what you just said about really making sure that there is that team outside of the ownership. The ownership sometimes can be irrelevant, in that you're looking for that team. Who's running the shop?
And I will tell you, Jason, we've actually had some companies that contacted us. Now that we've kind of got a reputation for being a
Yeah.
company that is buying companies, we get calls like this. And after doing a little bit of an analysis, I might have a conversation with the owner and say to them, you're not quite ready to sell your business yet. You may not know this, but and I hate to break it to you, but you're just not quite ready. So what might be a good strategy for you is to look at who your number two is, or either begin mapping out a succession plan
Yep.
instead of just selling the business. Put a succession plan together, put an exit strategy together,
Yep.
because, I think you're right. I think there are a lot of people that think, all of a sudden the acquisition little fairy's going to float down and all of a
Yeah.
sudden sprinkle magic dust and the company's going to
Sure.
sell. But quite frankly, there are many owners that, just like you said, they're the top salesman, they're the relationship manager,
Yeah.
they're the bank relationship, they're all those things, and they just really not brought anybody in. And for those owners that are thinking about selling their business, you need to think about a strategy and a plan more than an event, because it
Right.
is a plan for your benefit and also for the benefit of the employees. I will say this, for a plug for employee ownership, it is a great model for business owners who are thinking about selling their business.
Yes.
You've got your employees that have been helping you build this business and build a model and, helping you be successful. Hey, let's think about turning around and selling, getting a good fair market value for the company and
Hmm.
allowing employee ownership to be part of your exit strategy. It could be in a small percentage or selling the whole thing. But
Right.
I will say this, employee ownership is an incredible dynamic for exit strategy for anyone who is, particularly for those that are building a great team behind
Hmm.
them.
Is there a size barrier for this? Because I've seen, small companies, and that has been suggested. And the feeling that they had was that it was a barrier to, that it was expensive. It just wasn't going to be feasible for them to do that.
Yeah, I think there is a size barrier just for that reason. It is a financial transaction, so
Yes.
there is an expense to do it. But when you think about, the perpetual model of employee ownership, and that's the way we look at it, it's all relative. So I don't know that I could just say definitively that it is a numbers game,
Sure.
but it definitely seems to be a little easier if you get the numbers up into the 75 to 100 people as opposed to be at 10 or 20 people, just
Right.
because of the
Right.
cost of the transaction to get it going. But even still, I really believe as part of an exit strategy, particularly those owners that want to hand their legacy off
Yes.
and, continue to watch their team grow because they've been teaching and training them.
Yeah.
It's a huge, huge benefit to the employees that have been working, but also I believe it's a great benefit to the owner and legacy handoff.
Agreed. I think that you just hit it there. I mean, really, you're looking for that owner who is more interested in that legacy and the development, and the long term development of the people that got him there than the wheelbarrow full of cash. I mean, I think that
Yeah.
that's really ultimately the person you're looking for.
And quite frankly, I think that there are owners who may be, it may be a misnomer that employee ownership selling to the employees might not be equal to out there selling to private equity. And maybe that's true. Maybe
Right.
there is a factor of that may a little bit of that true, but you also have to consider sometimes, sell to private equity, you kind of lose that mentality of the team and the
Yep.
culture that you've been building there for years, and
Hmm.
employee ownership would continue the culture. So I think the
Right.
fair market values are closer maybe than they used to be when you're
Mm.
going out and getting that value for your business. But when you hand off that business, sell that business to your
Hmm.
employees, I think there's something special about that. I believe the owners, Frank Martin and Steve Schultes, I believe that there was a lot of consideration of, hey, we've done this together. We want you guys to keep doing it. We're going to sell to the employees. And I think that they loved watching the company grow with the people. I mean, they raised us. I mean, I
Yes.
worked for them guys for 25 years. They literally raised us from teenagers.
Yes.
So I know that they were proud of us and the success, and we owe a lot to them because of the foundation they laid for us to be able to do what we've done.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, and really, if somebody has put, their career into this, in many cases, most of them really want to see this thing continue. Now, is there the lure of private equity? Sure. but it comes with its challenges too. It's not a free lunch. I mean, and I think people, and I've worked with several companies that have sold into a private equity entity or been in one when I've started my relationship with them, and some good, some bad. It's really a mixed bag there. But I think you're absolutely correct that the culture will change. That culturally there is a shift when you sell into private equity versus exploring this ESOP employee ownership model. One point though, as you kind of moved into the acquisition here, and this was a conversation I had with a gentleman named Mike Mortensen of Alaska Rubber Group, and he talked about ESOP. He's an ESOP proponent. I mean, this is, he's big into ESOP. He talked about it was so much easier to acquire companies because he could bring that company into the ESOP. And it was very attractive for that other owner, because they kind of got the best of both worlds here.
I know Mike Mortensen.
Oh, you do?
He's a great guy. Matter of
Yeah.
fact, he was on our podcast and he brought up this phrase called bootstrapping. So you need to check that out.
Yeah.
Mike is such a great guy and such a dynamic leader. I love his enthusiasm, but he's 100% right. On the buy side of acquisition, for example, we just had an acquisition of BBC Fasteners in Chicago, and BBC Fasteners, all of those employees become owners not only of just their company, they become owners of the whole thing.
Right.
So the buy side for the seller, when he's selling to us, he says, okay, well, my people that I've been, I've been a part of their lives for all these years. I'm looking for somebody to hand them off to that's going to take care of them. So not only are they handing off the company to a really good culture, but also those employees become owners of the business that they've been working for all those years. And not only that, they become owners of the big threaded fasteners, the whole shebang, so to speak.
Sure.
Which is huge. It's a huge benefit to be a part of an employee-owned company. So I really believe as part of the buy side of this, it's a huge when we can go in and talk to owners to say, your employees are going to become owners of this whole thing. Yeah. I really do believe it's a big part of our negotiation strategy.
It's very attractive. I mean, I think it's a very attractive thing for that person, the legacy-minded individual. I think that's it. And they didn't, for one reason or other, they didn't have the ability to create an ESOP there, or, they just maybe weren't of size. They weren't of size where it made financial sense to do that. But now they get to participate. And I think that's a pretty amazing deal. It makes you really attractive. I'll tell you, I think that, when you're in parts of, associations and things like that, I mean, I would hang my banner out there, say, hey, we are an ESOP company and we're looking to buy. We're ready to go.
Well, there's all sorts of circumstances that cause owners to want to sell their business. And for whatever reason, I wouldn't want to get into and speculate all those different things. Yeah. But I believe that we offer a good solution. And we've had a lot of companies come to us, a lot of owners come to us and talk to us about it. And we've passed on some. We've went forward with some. We've also said, hey, think about employee ownership. Maybe it's something you want to do on your own. Yeah. So we're advocates for employee ownership. So we love to encourage more and more employee owned companies. And in our space, we see a lot more, even in the coming days, in the coming years. We believe there'll be more companies out there that we may have an opportunity to partner, merge, acquire.
Sure.
Looking forward to that.
Well, and I think one thing that's really interesting, I've always, kind of believed that the greatest untapped asset we have in our companies is this collective creativity and the people that work with us and for us. And I feel like when they become part of the ownership, literally part of the ownership, that they have their certificate, the creativity becomes a little more unlocked. And all of a sudden you start having some very creative people opening up new ideas to your organization.
Yeah, and I will tell you, Patrick Lencioni wrote The Advantage, and in The Advantage, that book, he said, organizational health trumps everything else. And then there's the quote that says that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And when you start tapping into that, as you say, collective creativity, and you start seeing the health of the organization, my job is not to come up with all the answers. A leadership's job is to create an atmosphere, create a culture where those answers can come forward. And that's the cool part about, I believe, about employee ownership. I believe that we had a great culture before employee ownership. I think Frank and Steve helped us lay the
Yeah.
groundwork for that. But since then, I believe employee ownership has become an enhancement to unlocking, so to speak,
Yeah.
unlocking the creative, the intellectual, all those properties that exist, kind of like the seed bed in the garden. You want to unlock the soil so those nutrients can come forward.
Right.
And I believe that's the comparison of what a great culture does. And the ownership mindset, the ownership culture, I'm telling you, it just things come forward now to the point where you have to say, hey, this company's not run by committee. The company still runs structurally
Yes.
like your typical organization is, but creating this atmosphere of clear communication. We love to talk about vision here. My
Yeah.
responsibility as CEO is to say, here's where we're going, here's how we're going to get there, and here's your part in how we get there. And that's part of how we talk around here. We
Hmm.
love to talk about vision and where we're going, and then get everybody's input as to how we're going to do that. We just finished our 5-year strategic plan,
Hmm.
rolled it out to our team. A lot of excitement around that. And it's pretty cool things happening here at Threaded Fasteners.
Oh, it's fantastic. Well, hey, before I let you go, I want to hear a little bit more about the podcast you alluded to. Tell me, how long have you all been doing the show?
So our marketing and communication director at the time, Haley Gibson, and we were just here in the office, just kind of spitballing. It was
Sure.
really about some communication ideas, about some touch points, maybe even around employee ownership month. We were talking about different touch points, how we could communicate, and I just kind of, hey, what about a podcast? And Haley's
Yeah.
so creative, and she just kind of, all she needed was just a little nudge. And so
Yeah.
we are a part of a network. I have a CEO network that I'm a part of.
Oh, great.
And man, so we had a bunch of built-in guests right off the bat. And what
Yep.
I thought, Jason, would be a great idea would be to bring those guys in and gals and do interviews and let them talk about their leadership journey. So it's called the nuts and bolts of leadership. And we
Nice.
really kind of frame it around, we don't want to talk about leadership and concept. We want to talk about what leadership really looks like. If you walked out on the floor at Threaded Fasteners, this is what leadership looks like. So these guys and ladies that joined our podcast talk about, how they got started, what their challenges were, what advice would they give to emerging leaders, what was somebody who influenced their leadership journey, all those things. And then not just those guys, we started plugging in others. And of course, you'll be a guest on our podcast coming up. We just love to hear the stories of leadership, and our people are tuning in and listening to that. And so not only are they getting to hear from me directly about
Right.
leadership, they're
Right.
getting to hear from these proven leaders, very successful leaders, and telling their story. The part I didn't anticipate is that we've kind of built another audience. We built a bigger listening audience than just our group. So
Right.
it's been fun getting to hear the stories. I'm like getting an MBA in leadership because of interviewing all these people. So it's been a great journey for us and for our team on being able to communicate about what leadership looks like.
Isn't that the truth? I tell you, will say I'm an origin story junkie. I love to hear people's origin stories, and I think, again, you get really phenomenal ideas from those guests. And I'll tell you, it's just I learn something every single time. I absolutely love these conversations.
Jason, I have stolen more ideas in the last 2.5 years than I have my entire career. I mean, I'm just making notes the whole time the interview's going on. We call these wisdom nuggets. So I've got all these little
Yeah.
nuggets that I'm writing down, and we have had some great guests, and we've implemented things at this company that came straight from the podcast. So I am a stealer of ideas. That's for sure.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. That's all consulting is, man. It's we're honeybees. We land on a flower and then we go pollinate another one down the road. So, yeah.
That's exactly right. It has been a really cool part of our story. People are listening to the podcast. I will get comments all the time in our warehouse. Somebody has heard something on the podcast. It's really kind of cool.
Well, Billy, hey, thank you so much for taking the time with me to do this. It's just been a pleasure to catch up and check in on your journey here. And I really look forward to the next time our paths cross.
Yep. Jason, I'm looking for the reciprocal of our podcast meeting. We'll get you set up and get to hear your story.
Perfect. All right, my friend. Well, thank you again.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.